Hello, everyone. My name is Alec. This is Whitewall Comics, and it's just me. So what had happened was John was unsure if he was going to be able to make it. So there's that, and I neglected to follow up with our guest today or earlier in the week after I had asked him originally. So I guess it must have slipped his mind, which I understand. This isn't important. And that wasn't sarcastic. That was supposed to be self-deprecating. Thanks, Chad. I try. So I'm here, and I'm going to talk about Nova 1 for a bit. If anyone has read it this week and wants to hop on, let me know, and I'll send you the link. Otherwise, I'll just talk about it for a few minutes and see if someone hops in. So, funny story about Nova 1 this week. The reason we picked it was because it wasn't a facsimile, it was a True Believers came out this week, I believe, or at least was on the solicit list that I read. And one second, we got a volunteer, a brave volunteer. All right. So it was on the solicit list, and I was like, oh, that'll be easy. It's $1. And I know a lot of people have already read it, already have it. So it made it easy, theoretically, to allow people to read it, or to myself included. However, the shop that I go to didn't get the True Believers. So that left me in a bit of a bind because I don't have Marvel Unlimited, but I found a way to read it. Leave it at that. This was my first time reading this. Oh, hey, look who we got here. Glad you could make it.
It's good to see you, brother.
You too, man. I don't know if you
hope this on your own. 2 shows.
Caught my intro there, but
I didn't. But yeah,
it is all my fault that Tony is missing.
What'd you do to Tony?
I asked him last week, before Wednesday of last week, if he could join, and then I never asked him again to say like, "Hey, you still free?"
Okay.
Which normally I do.
So are we going to talk about Nova without Tony Sanders?
Yeah, it seems weird, but I think we can do it.
I'm saying. Can I take us way off the rails right off the bat?
I mean, we already are, so might as well.
Are you live?
Yes, I'm live right now, sweetheart.
Oh, okay.
True first of my wife right now talking.
Hey. Just add it to the CGC label.
Just your intake earlier.
Oh yeah, I've been drinking. Just let it be known. I've had like 4.
He drank 4 cups of wine.
Charlie had her holiday performance tonight. She's wearing her Christmas best.
Looks very nice, Charlie.
Thank you.
She was singing songs. She introduced her class.
Hi, Kate.
Kate's got her holiday. Sorry, this has nothing to do with Nova number 1. Nothing.
Nova number 1. Cool. We're gonna talk about
You like Nova? You like Nova as a character?
Yes.
Is this going to be Saturday morning New Comic Book Day club with kids?
You reviewed a 12-cent DC comic this last week on Saturday Morning Comics.
Yeah.
She brought the hammer down on that show.
So Charlie, what wine?
You guys go play. Yes, I drink wine.
4 cups. And then we got to curse in the car.
They were small.
He went crazy.
I'm ratting out by my own kids. We were still able to sing most of Hamilton on the way home. I was doing.
You were going insane. You were like, ah!
Okay. I firstly know Hamilton front to back and was able to sing full voice on the way home. And it was very enjoyable. And I would share it with all of you, except the fact that we would get banned off of YouTube or Instagram.
For multiple reasons.
Yeah, I tried to post a video of the girls and I singing Hamilton on Instagram, and it would refuse to load.
So is this what you're going off the rails for, or did you have
No,
something else?
I was noticing that rereading Nova, the thing that struck me was how misogynistic it was. Like the man-woman thing was like hardcore. And then I started thinking about how Nova is like no vagina. And like it's Dick Ryder. Like it's hardcore, like man world, women have their place. Like there's an element to the whole thing that like blew my mind reading it.
I think this should be the entire conversation. I don't think this is off the rails at all.
For me, it was like another layer deeper on the Richard Ryder thing. Was like his name is Nova. And I was like, holy crap. It's been so long since I'd actually read this issue that my brain was just like, wow, is this the like man's world viewpoint comic book?
Before we dig in too much to that can of worm, I'm going to shout out the chat. We got Sam's Tangled Web here. Thank you.
Showed up just in time to light fire to this entire show.
I got his shoes back and mean in business. Forgot that he had a wrench. So you're all in trouble. Mike Sanchez. Speaking of which, look who we got here.
Hey, my boy. Chris, you were on fire in that Comic Con chat, brother.
We got what? Chris was in the comic. Oh, in the chat, yeah. TJ is in this house. Chad RCG, thanks for joining us. The big winner. If you guys don't know, check his Instagram.
He says he just took his daughter to Hamilton in New York. And it was worth. I will say I saw the traveling tour when it came to Orange County, and I went. My mother-in-law had season tickets to a repertory near us, and it was amazing. Like I listened to the music, I knew the songs front to back. In fact, my girls even put on a version of Hamilton for her before we went, just so that she had like an understanding of what the show really was.
And this isn't the culture show. This is the comic book show.
It was still just amazing to see. I'm gonna run and grab my number one. Give me a second.
Dave Enrique's in the chat. Immortal Biggie Shack, as always, hanging out. Thank you so much. Who else we got here? Comics for Thomas. I think that's everyone so far. So, yeah, John, do you hear John's theory that he just dropped? Like a can of.
I did. I heard. All I know is I was trying to get my stuff set up here, and I heard something about Nova stands for no vagina.
He was saying he found the comic very misogynistic. And which, yeah, I mean, it's a comic from the 70s. Now, for the record, as far as I know, they never call him Dick in the book.
No, they
call him Rich.
Yeah.
So I took this is my first time ever reading this, and I took some other things away from it, but I want to unpack your theory a little bit more.
Okay, I will say, Chris and I both joked about the fact that we didn't need to buy the True Believers because we actually had the issue.
Yeah, and I fold it back, read it under bed.
I thankfully just loaded it on Marvel Unlimited and read it that way because I didn't want to actually open the issue.
I have mine open
section. But yeah, I was surprised by how it was like it for me. The whole thing, if I want to like summarize for me, it felt like they took Amazing Fantasy, updated it with like a sort of cosmic storyline, retold it, and then just hoped that we wouldn't notice. That was basically, it felt very much like Peter Parker's going to outer space. Be ready.
What did Biggie Shack say?
Yeah, I mean, I could agree with that in the sense that, like, you know, Dick Ryder, as you love to call him so much, he's kind of a boner. Like, he's just like, he's a loser, and he's like a whiny crybaby. And
well, to go to John's comment about the misogyny, like literally in the first page, he loses a basketball game to a girl, which no shame in that. And everyone is like, I can't believe you lost. And to a girl? So, but I think like that's supposed to show what a loser he is, to your point.
Yeah, girls suck, and how could you possibly lose to a girl?
Yeah.
Right. It's true. I mean, like you said, though, it is something that was based on the times. I mean, find me a comic book from the 70s that wasn't like misogynistic. It's kind of difficult.
Yeah.
I mean, look at the Fantastic Four.
Poor Sue Storm.
Poor Sue Storm is literally invisible. Biggie Shack is shaving his beard at Chad's auction this weekend, apparently.
I need to tune into that.
Is it for charity or just?
Yeah, it's for charity.
Yeah, okay, I'm down.
So that's crazy. That's intense. So yes, I mean, it's funny that you should compare it to AF-15 because it, to me, it was like very Green Lantern, and I don't know if it's just a space thing, but it was just like,
I
this
was
thing flying through space and selecting a new worthy person, even though it was just like a crapshoot. This time it's just like, here you go, hope you find someone good.
Yeah, it had the Centurion on the ship has that very Abin Sur Green Lantern feel, for sure. I mean, I noticed the same thing. I think, they really looked to copy other things that worked, and I don't know that they did a great job. I kind of feel like this is an overrated book, in my personal opinion. I don't know if it's too early in the show to throw that take out there.
I think we've noticed that with like early keys, these like True Believer or whatever DC calls them books, that a character that is first represented now, and then you look like 30, 40 years later, the version that is iconic, like the version of Nightwing that's iconic now versus the one that first appeared in Wolfman Perez.
So I was gonna liken it to our Teen Titans conversation because that was
there's a lot of crossover.
And I found Teen Titans 1 like dated but still enjoyable. I found this like rather absurd and silly. And so I'm kind of glad Tony's on here because I know how much he likes Nova. But even like from the first page, there's literally a text bubble that says some like where references Marvel. Yeah. However, on the off chance you were not lucky enough to be there, we at Marvel suggest you sit back and in a comfy chair. Like the narrator is referencing the fact that it's a Marvel comic. That's buck wild.
And that you missed out, and you better suck it up and catch up.
Because you weren't lucky enough to be drinking a strawberry soda at a certain place in New York, and therefore you are not Nova. So good thing you're reading this comic so you can enjoy it secondhand. Wild stuff.
Oh my god.
That isn't even the most wild thing I found about this.
No, it's not. It's not. Not at all. Hello to Perry Comics in the chat and Sam's Tangled Web. Love you, Sam.
So basically, I'll go over the plot a little bit before we go into it. So he loses his basketball game. He gets picked on. He's bullied. Somehow still has like a babe of a girlfriend. He's sitting in the ice cream parlor drinking his strawberry soda. The bully comes back in, smacks him in the back of the head. The Nova thing comes and hits him. He passes out. The guy's like, "Oh, I didn't think I hit him that hard." And instead of saying, "What did I do?" he said, "Oh, I must be stronger than I thought. Wow." And then here's maybe my favorite. Well, no, definitely not, because I just remember the other part. One of my favorite parts of the book. Let me read this. It is less than half an hour later that Richard Rider rests comfortably in his hospital bed. Blah, blah, blah. And then the doctor says he's still in a coma, and I'm not even sure why. It's been half an hour. He's just unconscious. That is not a coma.
Give him 30 minutes.
Yeah.
I agree.
Yeah,
the doctor slays me. Like,
and also
moments when the doctor's like, "You better get out of here," but I'm going to stand in the way of whatever's happening because I have no clue what's happening right now.
So, like this narration is wild to me for a few reasons. First of all, which is like it's just been half an hour. He's not in a coma.
Yeah.
Secondly, from the time that he was hit in the back of the head and hit with the Nova thing to the point where we are at has been 30 minutes, including the time of transport. How many tests did you have time to do to not understand why he is in a coma?
That didn't even come to my mind. That's hilarious.
Like, you couldn't have put like 48 hours later?
Whoa, now you're asking a lot. From 30 minutes to 48 hours, you're asking a lot.
I don't know.
I think you're expecting too much out of this comic book.
And let me shout out the fact that Chris has an unbelievable lineup of books behind him on the wall there. Like there's some amazing ASM, there's some amazing Mr. Miracle, and I'm currently been slowly working through the Kirby Mr. Miracle. And were I to sort of pick out any individual issue and just examine it with the microscope that we're putting Nova under, there would be plenty of moments that would fall under the same sort of perspective, I think. And I really am enjoying the Kirby Miracle, but at the same time, I recognize how out of date it is socially or even from a literature standpoint. And so there's definitely parts of this that I'm willing to let go, but there's also story moments like you're saying with this doctor where I'm just like, okay, come on. Like there, even in whatever 1980, 70, there's no doctor that would behave like this. This guy's insane.
So John is known for his hot takes. I'm gonna drop one right now. I think Silver, Bronze Age, Golden Age books are not as good as modern age books. I think, like people always say, like, oh, better stories, better writing. Hogwash. People have learned how to write comic books better. Maybe the creativity of the like characters aren't the same. I don't know. You can argue that, but like if this came out today, this would be panned.
Yeah, but you know that if were it to come out today, it would look different. And that's what you're discussing, right?
I'm saying like if a book that was with this, even if it was drawn differently, with this writing as it is now, was put out today, people would say, who wrote this? And I'm not saying that
or Marv
is a bad writer, because like I said, I enjoyed Teen Titans 1. It was just a bit dated.
Yeah.
This is just like, yikes.
Poor Fu Manchu.
So getting to the point where,
and I say too, Marv Wolfman was at my LCS last Wednesday signing books. And I met him in Baltimore, and he did an interview with the Comic Core, and he is one of the nicest, funny, spot on guys. But I do think his stuff from the late 70s, early 80s is dated, and this is somewhat of an example of that. I also felt like you're saying, Teen Titans, the issue number 1 is superior to this on pretty much every level.
And I don't want to like put too much. I don't want to dunk too much on him, because I feel like he was just writing to the medium at the time. Like this is every comic I read from this era is like kind of like this.
Yeah, I mean, I think you guys are both right in regards. I think John made a good point in comparing it to like Mr. Miracle and stuff, is that and he's kind of saying the same. John kind of said the same thing you're saying a little bit earlier without so much as saying it, when he said that characters that we've come to love now, our iconic vision of them is based off of more like modern tellings and not based off these classic tellings. So if you're a huge Spider-Man fan, you may want to own an AF-15 as your grail, but the reality is that the Spider-Man you love was cultivated through modern books and through modern cinema. So, you know, our ideas of these characters, I think it has changed a lot. So everyone wants to see this Nova book is exploding. The reason why this True Believers came out is because everyone knows that we're going to see a Nova in the MCU. So everyone wants to get a piece of Nova, but nobody knows what that means, because they see what modern Nova is and they're looking towards MCU Nova. And now we're reading this and we're saying to ourselves, this isn't really that great. This is why this was like a $10 book a couple years ago.
Yeah. Pick up that first appearance of Sam Alexander, just saying.
So what you're saying is everybody wants a piece of dick, and I get that.
Oh, jeez. Watch it on my channel. TJ says comics from the 60s and 70s were aimed at a much younger audience with very few exceptions. Sure, I wouldn't disagree with that, but like as stuff like Pixar has shown us lately, like you don't have to write down to kids.
Can I also, like, there's a great conversation going on the Comic Core about whether or not, is it Bill Fingers? Is that his name? The gentleman who's given some credit as far as not creating Batman, but recreating Batman. That obviously, Bob Kane gets credit for creating Batman, but like that possibly the Batman we know and love was created by time and several artists and writers over time refining that character. Whether you look at this character of Nova or Spider-Man, who we've mentioned, that characters evolve. And so somebody like Deadpool, when you look at, New Mutants versus you look at what some of the characters later on, like Jerry Dugan did, you can kind of see an evolution to that character. And what we love and what we think of as Deadpool or what we think of as Nova happens over time and is not here in issue 1.
Yeah. And I think that goes for any characters, even newer characters. Like characters that are created in the last 10 years are still different today than they are when they started. But
or you look at, I know that Carol Danvers gets a crap ton of hate. And some of it deserved, some of it not so much. But like you look at her over time, the version of her in the first appearance versus the Miss Marvel version versus the binary version versus the Captain Marvel version. I gone through more evolution than any character.
I think that Carol Danvers gets more hate than normal because she became Captain Marvel. If she hadn't, I think that people would either not care or like still kind of like her. But the fact that she became a man character, she was like kind of the first
take that mantle after he died so tragically.
Right. And now you get, the whole comics.
I want credit that it was Bill Finger. I remembered the name correctly. Geek aficionado. Thank you.
So anyway, back to the plot. Nova or Richard has this dream while he's in a coma for half an hour about seeing the Centurion shoot his powers. And then John kind of hinted at this. They cut back to the hospital room and Richard, still in his bed 35 minutes into his coma, starts kind of slipping out. And
this is when the doctor should just give up on him, right? It's been 30 minutes. Like it's a hopeless cause.
The doctor says, "Impossible? What? He's in spasm. All of you leave quickly." Here's my favorite line of the book. "I want to be alone with your son."
This whole moment with the doctor where he's like shoving the family out, but he's staying, even though what's happening is clearly well beyond medical knowledge.
But at this point, it's still not, because he hasn't started blasting stuff with his eyes. And then he goes on.
The green light is like happening, right?
Not yet. All he's doing is kind of flipping and flopping a little bit. And then he goes on. His next line, he says, "I've never seen anything like this before. You just said he's in spasm. So you know what it is." And the line, "I want to be alone with your son," not "clear the room, I need space to work." Wild. And then he says, I said, "Go now and get my nurse. I dare not leave him alone for a moment." Yet you're
the doctor from Arrested Development who was always saying things wrong, like, "We lost your husband."
Yeah.
And then they're all like, "Oh!" And then he's like, we don't know where he is. He disappeared at the window. We don't know where he went."
Like, instead of attending to the person that you are so concerned about, you can't leave them alone for a moment, you are pushing people out of the room because that's more important. I don't know, man. That was like,
it's the Arrested Development doctor. It really must be.
So then he shoots green lasers out of his eyes.
Yeah. Then he starts, like, the room lights up and stuff starts happening.
But then immediately his mom's like, "Oh, I'm so glad you're back," after he just shot laser beams.
You may not be glad, Mom. You may not be glad.
And then interestingly, we get to chapter 2 of the comic.
Yeah. Is it 4 chapters? This particular issue is pretty dense. There's like 4 parts.
Yeah. I found that an interesting kind of storytelling.
It was 3 parts too many.
Well, especially considering, and this is my first gripe when Alec was like, did you read it or whatever? And I typed it back. I was like, there's no ending to this book. Like they basically decided when they got to the end, hopefully people tune in for issue 2. We're just gonna end this thing.
Yeah. So
well, they had all the things that you're supposed to have. They have like the origin story, and then they have sort of like more background, and then there's like a boss fight, and then it's over.
So, and the boss fight is the guy who killed the old Nova. No explanation about how he found Earth, because this spaceship is still hundreds of thousands of miles away, or at least like 8,000 miles. But suddenly he just like shows up and he's just like, hey, I killed you once before, I'll kill you again. Practically levels the city and then just disappears, well, or like gets vaporized. I'm really skipping ahead, but like that's basically the long and short of it. He figures out he has powers, he flies around. He says the line.
He says stuff like blue blazes.
He says, hello there to the pigeons, which I thought was really weird. And he also says, man, oh man, no hyphens. Says, and man, oh man, I am. One word.
Poor TJ. I don't want him to feel like we're crapping on this book. But TJ says, again, when I was a kid, I bought it off the rack, thought it was the best thing ever. I don't think we're saying that it's garbage. I think what we're saying is that it's certainly just as dated as New Teen Titans, which is another Wolfman masterpiece, but that we're saying that like the flaws are maybe a little more obvious here. The simplicity is more clear.
I'm sure if I read this as a kid, I would have loved it too.
But I think that once again just goes to say the point that Alec made as far as storytelling, that like my favorite book from the last year is Silver Surfer Black. And I don't think in 30 years that anyone's going to read that book and be like, puh, this is simple.
Right.
This doesn't make any logical sense to read. I don't think that that's going to happen. I think that this book has an issue.
Geek Aficionado says, White Whale Comics, that's the 70s for you, my man, oh man. That's a solid joke.
And also, can we throw like a little historical like space travel reference point in here? 1969 was the first landing on the moon. So we're within like a handful of years after the first landing on the moon. We got a superhero space traveler, which is something Marvel hasn't done a whole lot of. I think that there was an element of like, wow, you too could become a superhero and travel the cosmos and fight super villains and aliens from other worlds. And this was pre-Star Wars. This came out in September of 76. Star Wars was June of 77. So we're talking about a year before Lucas's Star Wars. I think there was definitely an element of they were tapping into this cosmos side of where kids were at this point.
They also drive past a place called Marvel Burgers, which I thought was another weird thing that they're like couldn't have been like Buscema Burgers or. So the bully and his girlfriend see Nova flying through the air, and they just decide, hey, let's go drive towards that. Which that's funny. Then chapter 4, the bad guy shows up. They fight a bunch. And then we get the epilogue of them saying like, he says, with my powers that I've only yet to learn about, but I've learned one thing, my powers must always be used for justice, no matter what the risk, no matter what the danger. And that is the destiny of Nova. Did I miss the point where he learned that lesson?
Definitely.
Really?
No, I'm kidding. They took over a lot of that stuff. I think I think commenting that this was a relationship between what DC did with Green Lantern and what Marvel had already succeeded with Spider-Man, I think they tried to marry this stuff together. It's very clear that they were taking those elements and combining them. And there were pieces that were interesting and pieces that felt very derivative. But I mean, that's clearly looking back 40 whatever years later, 50 years later.
Oh,
Nova.
this is another line that I was like, well, where did you come up with this line? Where he says, when he rescues the guy and he goes, hey, when you tell the papers, make sure you spell my name right. It's Nova with one N and one A.
Is there another way to spell it?
Like, if anything, he might say one V, maybe.
Nova.
Is Avon backwards? Tacoma Comics says.
Is it going to upset people if I mention that I've never read a Sam Alexander Nova story?
I'm not really into like the cosmic world, so
I'm just more of a Dick Ryder than a Sam Alexander.
well, you said it, not me. Yeah, Geek Aficionado said, how the F else would you spell it? It's Tacoma Comics. No. So yeah. Are you going to pick up issue 2?
No, I think I'm gonna pass.
I got this as part of my Christmas haul 2018, and I really am glad I got one because I know the book keeps going up.
Great cover.
I want to get it slabbed. I think it's one of those great first appearance books. I don't know.
Super cool cover, very cool design. Like I was saying earlier, if I had read this as a kid, definitely would have been 100% into it.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm curious. I want to get my girls to read it before Saturday and let them give a little review of what they think of it for Saturday, just to have a kid perspective. But I feel like it's a huge key book, right? Because it's had repercussions for decades. I just think as a single stand alone, it doesn't hold the water. Like again, I was far more impressed with the New Teen Titans.
Yeah,
and I wanted to read way more New Teen Titans than I do Nova.
So I wonder how much of that had to do with George Perez then. So I've not read like a ton of Wolfman stuff.
Or I think for me, honestly, what it boiled down to was this felt a lot like AF-15 Spider-Man 1, kind of like kid in high school stuff, whereas New Teen Titans felt like a team trying to form and the social dynamics were interesting.
Yeah. I don't know. I mean, you know me, I'm going to dump on everything, so don't listen to what I have to say.
I don't think I'm dumping on it too much. I honestly
think I did.
Good qualities. I just don't know that if I were to just straight up compare New Teen Titans or Nova, New Teen Titans ranks out.
It looked very good. The art was solid.
Yeah. Is it Byrne? Is that who's doing it?
John Buscema.
Okay, Buscema.
I mean, I think the greatest quality that the book has is that it has maybe long-term monetary value. I mean, I know that that's not the basis of this conversation, but I think with movies and the way that increases, book value, I think that this book only has room to grow upwards, regardless of how good of a read it is.
But I mean, I think that is part of the conversation always now is what the value of an older book is going to be.
I think that the book itself has enough core, decent plot points that it can be fleshed out into a quality story by being sort of rewritten for a moviescape.
Yeah,
if that makes sense.
It's funny you should say that because halfway through the book, I thought to myself, well, this is a pretty good plot. Like, I bet I could rewrite this a lot better.
Right. And I think that it has a lot of room for that. I think if you took those three things that we talked about, that it has that origin story, it has that sort of middle ground of fleshing out the character, and then it has that last part of that power discovery and that boss battle, that sounds like a movie. That sounds like what a book should play out as. It just wasn't written as strongly as it could have been written.
Yeah, and I know they introduced the character in name before he showed up, but it would have been cool to like at least get some like an over the shoulder, like Dr. Claw style, not seeing him thing of him trying to track him down or something.
Or I felt to get off of Earth. I feel like I was kind of disappointed that this issue felt like Earthbound.
Earthbound.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I
He didn't even get to the spaceship, which I felt like had to be pivotal in this issue.
I will defend that a bit. If you just learned that you could fly and you had these powers, would you automatically fly into outer space?
No, but if I was having visions of a spacecraft that I knew was hanging, I would feel like I was being drawn to it.
Yeah,
I could see. I mean, I could see both. I could see both sides of that. I think so. I think it was busy enough that I think if they introduced the cosmic part too early and had him go into space, then it would just become one more thing for us to sit and rag on and say, "Oh, why'd they rush that?"
Yeah, I think, like, if anything, the one thing this book took its time with was letting him not go to outer space yet. Yes? No?
Yeah, I agree.
I wanted him to connect with the spaceship, even if it was just like the last moments he gets there and the ship tells him his purpose or the goal of having these powers. I just wanted that moment of him being like, oh, wow, I've stepped into a much larger universe.
Well, there's your reason to buy issue 2.
Fingers crossed. That's what it's about.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I enjoyed it, but not for the right reasons. I'll say that. Because I found myself laughing at all the wrong parts.
Well, some of that's like just time, right?
Sure.
Drew Manchu has been awesome in this chat. So huge shout out to Drew. Shouting out New Teen Titans, talking about also the New Warriors run later on where we had Nova joining with, like, is it what's the stalker guy? What's the guy with the nightsticks or whatever that's like
Michelangelo.
Skateboard. Oh, you suck at this. That Warriors team was very entertaining. The leader of the New Warriors. What's the guy who's the leader of that New Warriors team?
I don't know. New Warriors is dumb.
I agree. It was 90s Drek, but it was just, I think it was another step in the evolution of the character.
Yeah, well, that's all I got to say about this. That's all I got to say about that.
Night Thrasher. Thank you, Comic Head 84. Night Thrasher. I wanted to call him Night Stalker, and I was like, that's just wrong. Immortal Biggie Shack. Holy cow. Yowza. Hilarious. Night Thrasher. Love you, Drew Manchu and Mastodon Collectibles and Geek Aficionado, who all know your New Warriors 90s goodness.
For better.
Sam says he loved the New Warriors. I read a few issues, I will say, but they were a little cheesy. I didn't stick with it very long. Silk Stockings. I love you, Drew. Love you, brother.
Well, I think I'm going to wrap up a bit early tonight because I don't know how much more I can say about this book.
I mean, I don't have anything else to add on the book unless you guys want to talk about something else.
I'm going to say I want to slab mine. I want to have it ready for the character's appearance, but it's for resale value. I'm curious to read about Sam Alexander because I do hear most people tell me that that's the preferred vision of Nova, just like some people prefer John Stewart as Green Lantern or what have you.
Yeah. I mean,
I just think that's the preferred version because people are more familiar with that version from when he was reintroduced. Because right now, if you look at the Nova that they're pushing heavy in current comic books, it's Richard Rider. They're not pushing Sam Alexander. So,
because that's who they probably want to put in a movie.
Yeah, exactly.
Although someone in the chat earlier said there's no proof he's coming to the MCU, which is true. But I mean, they're clearly moving cosmic, and they only have so many good cosmic characters.
And I will also say I think it was an intentional decision to sort of wipe out the planet of Xandar where the Nova seemed to live and not show us that. I think that moment when Thanos gets the first Infinity Stone, they robbed us of that moment intentionally, and I could see that being a moment that pays off on an origin story for a character later on.
Yeah, well, I believe that there's also supposed to be an Easter egg where Nova is supposed to be visible during that final battle in Endgame.
I would totally buy that. If they didn't, just imagine a Nova origin film where they show him at the last stand of Xandar getting wiped out and beaten by Thanos, and then showing up in Infinity War to try to even the scales, and then later being a member of the Avengers or being a cosmic superhero that's a character that's important later on. I could totally see that playing out.
Dollar Bin Fodder said
Yeah.
his cameo was in Thor Ragnarok. If it was, I missed it, but that very well could be the case.
But they said the same about what Beta Ray Bill having a statue in Ragnarok and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I think there's plenty of room for the character. I think he could be introduced in the next Guardians movie. He could be introduced for all we know. I mean, there's plenty of places for a character like that to be introduced.
Yeah, I mean, sure, Guardians of the Galaxy. You know what? The Captain Marvel 2. If they're going to do an Eternals movie, who knows? Who the heck knows? But yeah, I mean, a Nova Corps, like ending in the Nova Corps movie with like multiple Novas, might be cool if you're into that sort of thing. So yeah, I mentioned in the chat earlier that next week, John and I are going to be doing a very special year-end episode because the week after that is Christmas and the week after that is New Year's. So we're going to do our year-end review.
Yeah, it's kind of a bummer that Wednesday sort of lands on these key holidays. I know that for me, usually I don't do anything on New Year's Eve and New Year's Day, but my family, we're traveling to Utah, which last year, if you remember, Alec hosted us and I had the crappiest internet connection ever. And I was sitting in a corner of a bedroom just trying to like find Wi-Fi. So the odds of me being able to join and having anything sort of effective visually to offer you is low. And then, of course, Christmas, there's just no way that I'm going to interrupt family for YouTube. As much as I love all of you and I appreciate all of you, that's just Christmas. It's just not going to happen.
Yeah. Kiki Aficionado says, I'll be surprised they do another Captain Marvel movie. And Drew Manchu beat me to it and said, first one made $1 billion. So yeah, they're definitely going to make a second one.
It's going to happen, brother. It's going to happen. No question.
Even though there was still a lot of people dumping on it, it still made a ton of money. So
yeah, money talks. That's
more than
mine
views for sure.
For me, I think the bigger question is, what do they do? Because it seems like a lot of these sequel films now, they want to partner Avenger heroes up, right? The second Doctor Strange sounds like a Scarlet Witch film is going to be involved. The newest Guardians film sounds like they want to bring Thor into it. The new Thor film sounds like they want to bring Jane Foster into it. So then what does a Captain Marvel 2 partner her with? Is it a Nova? Is it, what is it that they partner her with?
I mean, it seems like a lot of this
a
has
small
to do
lizard that can light its fire on its back.
Yeah.
That's a Frozen 2 joke. A baby Yoda.
Introducing new characters is their biggest thing now. Like you said, that they just lasted 10 years off the strength of some major characters, and a lot of those characters are no longer present in the movies. So they really need to replace core characters with people that have longevity. So the characters that they're introducing now in the movies need to carry them over the next 4, 5, 6, 7 years, not just one movie. It has to be a new group of characters to continue to carry these storylines.
It's got to self-perpetuate. I agree completely. Drew Manchu, I do love your hot fire takes. I do think it's possible that the better than Wonder Woman comment might be a little bit far on those, Captain Marvel be bettering Wonder Woman #1. That's a hot take. I just got to say, brother, hot take.
And well, for you to say that.
Wonder Woman, if you rewatch it, doesn't quite have the same heat that it had the first time that you see it. Just saying that, not to say that I'm picking sides here.
I haven't seen either, so
I've enjoyed one. I mean, obviously, I watch these movies a bunch with my ladies here at the house. I've enjoyed Wonder Woman a bunch, and that Wonder Woman 84 trailer had me slayed. Like, I'm ready for this. I'm ready 100%.
Drew Man 2, using my language, third act Wonder Woman is a dumpster fire. I find that, like, that, honestly, that's the reason why I dislike so many comic book movies, is because the third acts are always boring.
Yeah, I mean, they're pretty typical. I think they don't break the mold very much. I will give credit to the Captain America films. I think Captain America 2 and 3, Civil War, I think is hugely underrated as a film, and I think Winter Soldier as well. Those are probably my favorite Marvel films.
Winter Soldier is the best Marvel film, hands down.
God, I love this guy. If you guys don't know, I got issues. Freaking love this guy. Everything out of his mouth is fire.
But that's not a superhero movie. Winter Soldier is not a superhero movie. It's a movie that stands alone as its own genre. That's like a spy movie with happens to have superheroes in it, and not superheroes per se. It's a movie that has all human characters. It doesn't have a bunch of guys in fancy suits or mutated or gods. It's
nobody
normal.
can fly independently of like a suit or anything. Like, yeah, I agree completely.
Yeah. And it's just a really well-written film.
The whole Nick Fury storyline and the whole sequence of him in the car chase is freaking epic.
Yeah, it's a really well-balanced film.
Elevator scene. Yeah, Biggie Shaq. Heck yeah.
I just find that, like, a lot of times in the third act, like, they concentrate so much in the first two acts of being, like, campy and silly and jokey, and then all of a sudden it's like, oh, right, this is supposed to be an action movie. We have to make them fight a bunch, and it just shifts the tone and, like, takes you out of it, and it's just like...
Winter Soldier didn't do any of that. Winter Soldier's like, no, this is a depressing movie start to finish. You just be ready for that. We're just going to be heavy front to back.
And that's why I like Shazam for the opposite reason, is because it was just silly the whole way through.
Right? They didn't slow down. Yeah.
Cool. Well, thanks for joining us, guys. I think this ended up being a great conversation despite the rocky start.
I think this was one of our best episodes in months. I feel like this was amazing. Well, let's just be honest. Our show is not really consistent.
Well, I mean, it's hard just reading like Drek after Drek after Drek.
Hey, last week, Skies is an amazing series. I think it's been great.
Yeah. No.
But sometimes if it's too good, we're like, I don't know what to say. It's just great.
Yeah, it's great. It's good. The art's good. The story's good. Great. Yeah. What else do you like about it? Yeah. Coloring.
Can I shout out? I Got Issues. If you don't follow him on Instagram, he does a weekly Wednesday look ahead at what's coming out the next week. It is one of my favorite things. Not only am I seeing like, oh, I got to get that book. I got to get that cover. I should check this out. The music he picks is fire. And I end up I go on iTunes like right after, and I'm like, okay, I got to download that song. I need that song. I got to get that song.
You still download individual songs?
I'm an idiot. I'm like 10 years later than any technology. I still burn CDs for my car, man. I'm that guy.
We need to have a talk.
I know. I have lots of talks. I have a record player over here. I have tape players over here, and I burn CDs for my car. I'm that guy.
There's nothing wrong with having a record player, John. I have a record player in the other room.
See, at some point it becomes kitschy. Later on, like 20 years from now, people are like, "Oh, cool, you got CDs. That's cool, man."
Cassette tapes. There you go.
No one besides Jason thinks my cassettes are cool. Yeah, I'll teach you about streaming sometime. Hey, shout out to John. Shout out to Chris. Follow them both on YouTube and or Instagram.
Okay, Boomer, yeah. Hey, I have a video dropping in 15 minutes, a live premiere on my channel, a 3-review indie 6-minute video. I've been making these videos every week. So I did indie, then DC, then Marvel. I'm back to indies again. I got 3 indie comics that I'm reviewing, and I do silly, random, odd, off the wall characters. So it's a 6-minute video. It starts at 9:15 or in 15 minutes from right now.
I find I have a hard time saying this. They're very good.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
I don't know how to
I have a hard time saying it.
Geek Aficionado says, "Is it the return of Cowboy John?" It is not. I'm trying to make it a really long time before anybody returns. I want new characters every week. So it's 3 new characters you've never seen on my show before.
Yeah.
I think the pirate one from last week might have been my favorite.
I really liked Invisible John.
Invisible John was so uncomfortable and so entertaining. I think I might have scarred Charlie because trying to do that shot of moving the comic book frame, she did it like 15 times, and she was like,
"Don't spoil the magic."
"I'm done making these with you, Dad. I'm done."
I thought you actually found a way to make something visible.
Right? I would say I have a moment in the middle of this 6-minute video that's coming out in 15 minutes that is almost on par with that moment. So worth watching.
Cool. Anything else you guys would like to plug?
No, that's it.
All right.
Oh, the Boy Who Had 7. He's got an amazing series going on, the 12 Days of Christmas, and it's running all the way through this Saturday. So almost every night, give or take, he's got some people coming on his channel, and he's giving away some amazing books to people as just a thank you to them. I'm thinking back to, he had Lindsay's Geeked Out Knickknacks, Lindsay's Collectibles. What is her channel now called? I'm sorry.
I forgot.
Kiki Lindsay, I think. That episode was great. So the last like 2 or 3 he's done are amazing. So just check out The Boy Who Had 7 because I've just been blown away each time I tune in. He had Sam's Tangled Web. It's just been blown away. He had Comic Books NYC and JP's Budget Collecting on the other night.
Yeah.
And
That's crazy.
Javi gets a book and then turns around, flips around, and AOKs somebody else in the middle of their freaking show.
Spoiler.
It was mind-blowing. I won't tell you the book. I won't tell you who gets it. You need to watch. I was just crying and cheering, and it was like all the emotions in 1 hour.
Geek Aficionado said he's dropping his first video soon. Look forward to that. Dollar Bin Fodder asks, we take requests for book club. Typically, we do new books that come out that week. But hit either John or myself up on Instagram if you have something you want us to talk about.
Listen, I know that you guys said, let me just interrupt real quick. I know that you guys said that next week is going to be your year in review. I just want to say, if you don't think you could fill a whole hour, next week is a really heavy week of really good books. So I just think if you're not sure and you're thinking about a book, there's a bunch coming out next week that are probably worth picking up. That's all I'm saying.
Hit us up with the list of things you think we should do, and we'll
go over to his Instagram, click on his story, and you'll see all of the books for this week.
Yeah, well, I put, like John said, I put up an IGTV video every week that's in between 2 and 3 minutes. That's basically a highlight of most of the books that are coming out. And then in my feed, I put usually my top 10 plus 2 to 5 like runner-up books that are like my personal books that I'm going to grab if I can get to the store and grab any books. So if you want to know what I'm reading or what I plan to read, you can always go there. And, I'm not a big speculation guy, but I will say that I have a pretty good track record, if that's what you're into, that the books that I put in my top 10 find themselves on a lot of other lists later on the following week or the week after. So let's just say that maybe sometimes I'm ahead of the curve when it comes to certain things.
You should start an app.
And I will say also, it's like a supremely entertaining watch. In like 5 minutes or less, you're getting awesome music, quick views of covers, and you're able to just basically plan out, what do I need to buy next week? It's super effective entertainment, I just straight up say.
Drew Manchu with the joke of the week. Doomsday Clock's supposed to come out.
It is supposed to come out.
I don't make that joke anymore. It's supposed to be done.
Yeah, it's supposed to be done 6 months ago.
No, it's supposed to be done like a year ago, wasn't it?
Yeah, probably. Cool. Well, thank you everyone for joining us. Thanks for the great chat interactions. Always appreciate it. And as always, I will leave you with this. Yeah, John's way ahead of me. Thanks everyone. Thanks to John. Thanks to Chris. And thanks for joining us. As always, never turn your back to the ocean.